This is Nauru, an island nation in the Central Pacific. This place has a fascinatingly rich history. Rich quite literally, as only 50 years ago, Nauru had the second highest GDP per capita on the planet. However, today, all the wealth is gone, and Nauru is plagued with financial and health problems. The area of 21 square kilometers makes it the third smallest country on the planet. Only 10,000 people call this island home, which makes it the second smallest country by population on the planet. But don't worry, they are facing something too. Despite the island being small, people living there are rather, how to say it politely, three-dimensional. Alright, that perhaps wasn't so polite. However, Nauruans are the most overweight people in the world. 97% of men and 93% of women are overweight or obese. Nauru as well has the world's highest rate of level type 2 diabetes, with more than 40% of the population being affected. The island has a serious alcoholism problem too, which is reflected by very high numbers of car accidents on the local roads, despite there being only 18 kilometers of the paved roads in total. All this results in Nauru having one of the shortest life expectancies on Earth. That's quite a lot of misfortunes for such a small piece of land. And I didn't even mention yet that the entire island looks like a moonscape filled with hostile looking limestone spikes, some of which are up to 15 meters tall. This is, however, a rather deceiving sight, because it is not about what you can see, but rather about what you can't see. 100 years ago, you would get a very different picture. What makes it all the more striking is that the former official name of Nauru used to be Pleasant Island. Today it is anything but. This old name as well points to the fact that these limestone formations were not always visible. They were uncovered by human hand, and they are silent reminders of the turbulent history of the place. History which makes for an interesting cautionary tale against greed and exploitation of the natural resources in exchange for just momentary and fleeting riches. But now I got to warn you, the history of how Pleasant Island became unpleasant is quite the shit show. And I promise you that I don't use this vulgar phrase lightly. As a matter of fact, I will never have a better and more fitting chance to say shit show than when describing the history of Nauru. Heck, this could even be the very origin story of this beautiful English phrase. I'm sure you will agree with me by the end of this video. Anyway, enough of the gross stuff. So, the history of the island starts with poop. Bird poop, to be more precise. You see, when you're on an island in the middle of the ocean, birds, supposedly, like to poop on you. Over thousands of years, the poop has accumulated, and thanks to the beneficial geographical conditions of the island, the poop has turned into a special kind of rock, known under the name phosphate. So, no gold, no diamonds, nor oil or gas, but poop made this island rich. Right now you might be asking, what makes phosphate rock so valuable? Well, if you ever bought fruits or vegetables from a shop, there are good odds that they were grown with the help of phosphate, as phosphate is one of the key ingredients in the production of fertilizers. So, in essence, phosphate rock is pretty much just more efficient poop. But I got ahead of myself. Let's get back to our third island history. Nauru was first settled by people already 3,000 years ago. For millennia, natives of course had no idea that they had a poop mine, right beneath their feet. The island's modern history started when it was first discovered by the British in 1798. Because of its pleasant appearance, the British named it the Pleasant Island. Here, natives got somewhat lucky, I would say, because being discovered by British is known to not always end very well, as good half of the planet could tell you. However, no colonization took place this time, and Pleasant Islanders were left in peace to thrive. Until they decided that they don't want to thrive anymore, and in 1878 a bloody 10 years lasting civil war took place, which was only ended by intervention from the German Empire, which annexed the island in 1888. During the German rule, in even 900s, the deposits of phosphate rock were discovered. And not just any phosphate rock, I mind you, but this was one of the purest phosphate rock ever discovered on our planet. The mining operation started right away, and of course this turned the island into prized possession. So, when the First World War started, Nauru was straight away in 1914 captured by Australian troops. Australia controlled the place and the mining operation for the next 50 years, with a break during the Second World War when the island was captured and controlled for 3 years by Japan. After the war, Australian control was restored, and the phosphate mining operation truly ramped up. Already in 1960, imminent ecological disaster would be a mild set of words to describe the state of things. Roughly 60% of the land on the island was strip mined, and it was predicted that by the 90s, the place would be completely uninhabitable. Believe it or not, but this actually made the parties involved in the mining feel bad about themselves. I know, this was a bit like stealing your neighbor's house, enriching yourself by selling all the stuff, turning the place into inhabitable ruin, and only then feeling bad about it. Either way, at least there was some self-reflection, and they felt an obligation to provide a solution to the Nauruan people for what they did to their island. Australia came with a brilliant solution. They planned to buy off all the land on the Curtis Island, which is located right off the Australian coast, and they proposed to relocate all the inhabitants of Nauru there. This was brilliant, mainly because such a solution would allow Australia to continue the mining operation on Nauru without any hindrances. Hindrances here meaning people. However, to Australia's credit, Curtis Island is 32 times larger than Nauru. But there was a catch. They proposed freehold ownership over the island, but Nauruans would have to be Australian citizens, as they were until now. Nauruans refused this offer, and instead they decided to stay and become an independent nation on their almost utterly ruined island. They became independent in 1966. Right away they stopped the mining operation and started to work on the restoration of the destroyed environment, saving it from the complete ecological catastrophe. No, that's not what they did. Unfortunately, this is a real-life history. It never goes that way when the money is involved. After independence, Nauruan took over the mining operation themselves, and continued strip mining the island for the next 30 years, becoming filthy rich in the process. In the 70s and the 80s, Nauru had the second highest GDP per capita on the planet, $50,000 per person. From that time we have some recorded stories. For example, the local police chief bought himself a Lamborghini, only to find out after import that he is too three-dimensional to fit into the driver's seat. In fact, there was several expensive sports cars imported to the island, despite the fact that there is only one paved road circling the island with a length of 18 kilometers, and the speed limit is 50 kilometers per hour everywhere. People were as well booking private jet flights just for a short shopping trips to a better supplied locations, or they were even using dollar banknotes as toilet paper. I could make some shitty joke right now, but I think we had enough of those already. Either way, I think that you can probably tell what happened once the phosphate rock deposits have dried out. Without them, the fairy tale wealth just disappeared overnight. You could say, it went down the toilet. Additionally, as the result of the mining, Island was left with a destroyed ecosystem and was turned into a bleak moonscape with 4/5 of the topsoil removed. Imminent financial ruin led Nauru to some desperate actions. In the 90s, it briefly became a tax haven and a money laundering center. It was possible to establish a licensed bank in Nauru for only $25,000 with no other requirements. This, however, backfired, and Nauru ended up on a sanction list of pretty much every country on the planet, which is not great for an island that has to import pretty much everything. Then earlier in 1989, quite hypocritically, Nauru took legal actions against Australia, over Australia's administration of the island, in particular Australia's failure to remedy environmental damage caused by phosphate mining. Well, make of that what you want. Australia agreed to an out-of-court settlement. To this day they provide yearly financial aid to Nauru, on which Nauru is dependent. But Australia doesn't provide the aid freely. In exchange, they built offshore immigration detention facilities on Nauru. So, a former prison continent now has its very own prison island. Quite a shit show, eh? However, the story of Nauru might have a good ending yet. After what you can call a complete economical meltdown in the early 2000s, Nauru has slowly been getting back on its feet, showing slight economical growth in the last decade. Unfortunately, a destroyed environment severely limits job opportunities. Majority of inhabitants are employed in the public service, which makes the life on the island economically unsustainable on its own, and will remain dependent on foreign help until the land is somehow rehabilitated.